I can't buy the air I breathe. I can't buy the trees. I can't buy the deepest seas. But it don't matter, 'cause they're there for free.
Hello and welcome to Around the World in 88 Tales. I'm David Heathfield here at the Royal Albert Memorial Museum in Exeter, and I'm with today my friend Alexandra Guzik from Krasnodar in Russia. Hello, Alexandra, how are you?
Hello. Thank you very much. Very well. What about you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Very excited to be with you and sharing a story. And Alexandra, can you tell us a little bit about your interest in storytelling and why you want to be part of the project?
Well, I'm an English teacher and I been teaching for nearly 15 years now. And for all this time, I've been interested in storytelling. That's how I got into the Hands Up project, founded by Nick Bilbro, and that's how we met. Um, and when I was offered to represent my country and to tell a story, there was like, oh yes, I'm going to do that because I'm so much into storytelling, and they don't really have the opportunity, a lot of opportunity to storytell now because I'm slightly away from the Hands Up project, and I don't have all the freedom of storytelling and my work because we stick to some curriculum. So when I had an opportunity to tell a story and to tell a story for such an audience, then of course I grabbed the opportunity.
Fantastic.
And thank you very
Fantastic.
much.
Wonderful. Well, the object for this story share is something very special. It's a box. Let me show you. Well, I'm just going to change the background so you can see it clearly. So this box is a Betel Box, and I'm almost certain that this Betel Box comes from Burma. So you can see it's a simple, well, not simple shape, it's a cylindrical box, and it's made of bamboo and lacquer, and then painted, and this beautiful gold lion. This is a Burmese guardian lion. Protector. Yeah, you've got the lion on the lid as well, you can see. And I'm not going to show you yet what's inside the box. I would like to tell you about that after I've told the story, but I'll explain more. But right now, let me tell you a story that also comes from Burma. So let's just have a look at the globe for a moment. I'm in Exeter here in the UK. So you're in Krasnodar, which is very near the Black Sea, right down in the south of Russia, which of course is a huge country.
Yeah.
Krasnodar's about here, right?
Yeah.
And this story comes from Myanmar all the way over here. I actually learned this story from a woman called Pleng, who comes from Thailand, which is a neighbor to Myanmar. So perhaps the story, like many stories, moves across borders. I'll stop before the end of the story so you can guess what happens in the end. Ma Sabe, Wise Ma Sabe. Once upon a time, there was a girl called Ma Sabe. She lived with her mother. They were very poor. They had a little land and a cottage by a deep, fast-flowing river. But the reason they were so poor was because they owed rent to a terrible king. This king was a tyrant. He charged the people high taxes. They could barely afford. Everyone was in debt to this king. The king had 300 wives. Yes, he abused his power. One day, the king rode on his magnificent elephant across the land and saw this girl working in the fields. That girl will be my next wife. He rode on to Ma Sabe's home, and there was her mother. Your daughter, what is her name? Ma Sabe. Ma Sabe will be my new wife. Tomorrow I will come for her. No, said the mother, that cannot be. She knew the cruelty of this king. You dare to refuse me when you owe me so much debt? I will marry your daughter. Please, no. Perhaps then tomorrow we will have a game, and the game will decide. And laughing, the cruel king rode away. The next day, he returned, but this time he was wearing a wonderful turban on his head, fine red and gold robes. He sat on his elephant, but now the elephant was painted white, and on top of the white there were gold, red and blue painted decorations, fine patterns. The king was followed by his advisors and all of his guards in shining uniforms. They came to Ma Sabe's cottage. There outside stood her mother, Ma Sabe herself, beside the river. You, Ma Sabe, will be my new wife. No, said Ma Sabe's mother, please. Ma Sabe looked at the king. My mother told me there would be a game. Very well, said the king, a game. And the king produced a box. Look at this box. Inside the box, there are two pebbles. One pebble is black and one pebble is white. Ma Sabe, you will close your eyes, put your hand in the box and take a pebble. If you take a white pebble, then you don't need to marry me, and your mother's debts are cleared. If you take the black pebble, then your mother's debts are still cleared, and you will be my new wife. This is the game. You win either way. Please, said Ma Sabe's mother, do not play, daughter. But Ma Sabe looked at the king in the eye, and she said, I will play. Ma Sabe could see into the heart of this tyrant. She knew that he was a liar. She knew that both of the pebbles in the box would be black. Close your eyes, said the king. He held the box, opened the lid. Ma Sabe reached in, felt the two pebbles and took one in her fist, took her hand from the box and then looked, peeping inside her hands. Oh, I do not have to marry the king. I am free. I do not have to marry the king. And she danced. My mother's debt is cleared. My mother's debt is cleared. And she span around and dropped the pebble into the deep river. What did you do? Said the king. Oh, in my excitement, I dropped the pebble in the river, but well, how will we know what color pebble you took? Said the king. You can see, said Ma Sabe. You can see. Look inside the box. Look at the color of the pebble that remains in the box. Then you will know what color the pebble was that I dropped in the river. The king was amazed, furious. He knew that Ma Sabe was wiser than him. She had outsmarted him. He felt so foolish. He could say nothing in front of his advisors and his guards. Angrily, he rode away on his magnificent elephant. Ma Sabe's mother's debts were cleared, and so mother and daughter lived happily and well. But this is the story of Ma Sabe. Did you guess, those of you who are listening around the world, how Ma Sabe was going to trick that king? Well, thank you for writing comments in the chat and Whether you're listening on Facebook or on YouTube, please tell us who you are and where you're listening in from. This project is about storytelling all around the world. And I'm so pleased to be with Alexandra Guzik in Krasnodar in the south of Russia. Alexandra, can I show you a bit more about this box?
Yes, sure. I'm
I
interested.
I didn't show you inside the box before, but now I would like to, because let me explain, if you don't know already, what a Betel Box is. So it's, if I open the box, you can see there is another box inside. Look. And if I open the second box,
is there the third one?
another box inside that one.
That's amazing.
A little box. Again, with the lion design. And if I open this little box, what will we find? Well, for the story,
Black pebble.
the black pebble. But of course, we don't really put a black pebble inside a Betel Box. In Myanmar, Burma, in India, in Malaysia, and many of the countries in Asia, there is a tradition of chewing the betel leaf. And the betel leaf is a slightly a slight stimulant, a bit like caffeine. And what people do is they take some nut, it's called the areca nut, and they cut the nut into pieces, and perhaps they'll keep the pieces of nut in this little box. And then in other parts of the box, they would keep the betel leaf and some lime paste. And they might also include a bit of tobacco, and perhaps in Burma, they might put some cardamom, perhaps some cloves in there as well to give it flavor. And then they would put it in the mouth and chew. And people would pass this around in a gathering. And they still do it today in many parts of Asia.
Wow.
Betel chewing. It's a bit like drinking coffee in the UK, sitting around a table drinking coffee with friends and neighbors. They would pass around the betel. And this has been going on for hundreds and hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. And they even have these very elegant boxes to keep the different components for this almost ceremonial ritual, although it's a daily ritual, but this might have belonged to a kind of a person of rank and status to show that they've got a very nice Betel Box set. So I'm wondering, Alexandra, does the artifact, this Betel Box, make you think of a story that you would like to tell?
Indeed it does, and it reminds me of something really Russian, of a Russian doll, which we call matryoshka in Russian. And the principle of its work is pretty much the same, it's just that you have a doll. And I'm going to show you this doll in a moment while telling my story. Can I start?
Please do, please do.
So, and here we go. We will start with some time ago. So once upon a time, there was a little princess. But she had a very big problem. She had no friends. Nobody even ever talked to her. She felt so lonely and miserable. So one day, when she was fed up with all the misery and all the loneliness, she went out of the palace and she walked into the forest, and she walked through the forest until she reached a kind of river or stream, and she sat on its bank and started crying, deeply crying. She was at the depths of despair. And she was crying so bitterly that she didn't notice until she heard a cry of a very strange voice, a croaky voice, like, "Stop salting my water!" And then she stopped crying. She was surprised, shocked, and she started looking with her eyes, watching who is talking, because there was no one alive around her, until she saw a very little man looking like a mushroom. And that man started growing, and then he grew nearly the size of the little princess. And then, with completely different voice, he said, "Why are you crying, little lady?" And she said, "Oh, I have no friends. Nobody even talks to me, ever." And he said, "Oh, I can help you with this. You don't need to make my stream salty. I don't like salty water." And he passed her a doll. When she was taking the doll, the man started disappearing, and the moment she got hold of it, the man disappeared completely. And she looked at the doll, and she saw that the doll looked really grumpy and angry. And she started thinking. She At first she decided that it was time to go home because she had some hope now. And she was walking and thinking, and when she got to the grounds of the palace, she was watching people, and she saw that people said thank you, and you're welcome, and please. And she realized she never ever in her life had used any of these lovely words. And that evening, when she got to dinner, when the servant served her food, she said thank you. That servant dropped the place that she was holding because she had never heard anything polite from that little princess before. Then she tried it again and again, and guess what happened in the morning? In the morning, the lovely doll had the lovely face and had a line in the middle. So the girl, as she was quite clever little princess, she pulled it apart and she saw another one. But that face had eye, no eyes. And she started thinking. She went out of her room. She was walking through the corridors, and she saw that different people have different problems. She saw one of her servants carrying some water and moaning because of her pain in the back. And then the girl came up to her and she said, "Can I help you?" The little servant was so astounded with the act, but she said, "Oh, yes, please," because she had terrible pain in her back. And the little princess helped a few more people that day. And guess what happened in the morning? In the morning, the lovely little doll looked, well, friendlier and well more helpful in this case. And there was another crack in the middle. So the girl pulled it apart, and inside there was another doll, even smaller. And look at the face. The face was, well, the girl guessed this face looked greedy and mean. Uh-huh. And she started thinking. She went out of the palace and she was walking, and she saw that some people give things to other people, saying happy birthday or thank you for something. Uh, and she asked one of her servants to teach her to make dolls. She wanted to share something. She started giving things to other people because she had a lot of extra things she didn't really need. And in the morning, the third doll looked perfect. And there was another crack. So the fourth morning came. She opened the doll, she pulled it apart, and she saw another one. And look, that one had, you're right, no mouth. The little princess thought deeply. That was a difficult one. And then she went out into the grounds again, and she looked at people, and she saw that people who talk to other people, especially children, they smiled a lot. They used their emotions, and there were so many positive emotions. And then that day, she started smiling, and she realized she had never smiled before. And guess what happened on the fifth morning? The fifth morning, the doll looked lovely again. So there was another line. She pulled it apart, and there was an even smaller doll. And look, her face was, can you see that? So sad. The doll's face was so sad. And she started looking again, watching people. She realized that people would teach her a lot. And she realized more that when people have other friends and when they talk and communicate, they tell jokes and they laugh and they use their sense of humor. I thought maybe that is one of the last keys to getting friends. And she came up with lovely jokes and she told them to people she met and they laughed. They laughed with her and they wanted to be friends with her. And guess what happened on that day? The lovely little girl looked good. The doll, sorry. And what was even more exciting, when she looked at all the 5 dolls standing on her shelf, they look identical. 5 identical, beautiful dolls. Oops, I'm sorry. I'll try to organize them on a book, but for these 5 days, the girl learned an interesting lesson. She learned that you might be grateful. You must be grateful, must say thank you, and you must be polite. She learned that you should help people if they need help. She learned that you should share and be generous if you have something to share. And you should smile. People love watching you smile, smiley people. They don't like watching people without emotions. And she learned to tell jokes because the sense of humor is one of the important keys to friendship. And that's how she became one of the happiest little princesses in the world, one of the friendliest little princesses of the world. And guess what? She never felt lonely again. And that is the end of my story.
That is so beautiful, Alexandra. The way you told the story and linking it to the dolls, and wow, I'm speechless. It was beautiful, and what a lovely story to tell to the children that you teach. Because I know you're teaching younger children and then working with children as they grow. And you were telling me before, sometimes when they come to you, they're just how old, like 9 or something?
Well, we start at the age of 5, but usually they come when they're 6 or 7, And
then you might be teaching the same children right through their childhood and into, until they're young adults.
Yeah.
And you're not just teaching them English, you're teaching them about life.
Oh, yes, sometimes that happens. And they trust me. They trust me their worries and problems. And that's probably how such stories are formed.
Yeah. And I can see how this box inspired this story, because there we have the box. Inside the box. And this box inside the big box. Just like the Russian dolls. Tell me, what do you call it again in Russian?
Matryoshka.
Matryoshka.
Mm-hmm.
And they're famous all around the world. Such a wonderful, and there's so much imagination with the matryoshka as well. I remember as a child myself being just enchanted by the Russian dolls.
Yeah.
Alexandra, thank you so much.
In all aspects,
Thank you so much for being part of Around the World in 88 Tales. And keep telling stories. It's wonderful what you're doing. And
thank you for inviting. It's really great honor.
Goodbye to all of you, and keep listening and sharing these stories from all around the world.
Bye-bye.
The trees I can't buy the deepest seas, but it don't matter, 'cause they're there for free.